So I'm really excited because I already have a new best friend this morning. We were so busy. We were so busy talking offline that, I said, okay, we better go online. But I am with Anne Marie Murphy, and we will go offline again to talk more. But thank you so much for coming on. She is a leader in higher education and nonprofit fundraising, which is one of the things we were talking about online, because I said right away, like, we have to dive into this, because one of the things I hear all the time, I experience, is those board members who don't want to fundraise. They want to sit on a board. They want to put their name on the top of, stationery. So, but before we go there, who is Anne Marie Murphy?
Thank you so much for asking. And Sarah, thanks for having me. I'm already having such a fun time getting to know you.
I know. We should have hit record 10 minutes ago.
So, all right. I have been doing what I do right now for 25 years. I had the good fortune to be brought under the wing of an incredible mentor when I was like 20 years old. I had no idea what I was doing, but she brought me into her office. It was a development office at my alma mater. And she said, just go through the files, figure out who these people are. So they were just file cabinets and file cabinets of our donors. This is how old I am. Back in the day when not everything was on a CRM. And so she had me for just days on end, just going through these folders. And she said, okay, figure out why these people give. And I learned about their families. I learned about their values. I learned about what they do in their leisure time. I learned about what awards they've won, how much they've given, to where, all this juicy stuff. But then when I sat down with her next, she said, okay, well, what's the next step? How do we inspire them to invest even more?
Okay, so I have to stop you. Yes. Because this mentor is the absolute smartest person I've ever heard in the fundraising. And what I think is missing from fundraising today, and what we're not teaching.
We're not teaching.
And I told you, I know a little bit about this.
Yeah.
But it's what we're not teaching future fundraisers. I mean, the fact that she said to you, these are my notes on you, but the fact that she said, learn about your donors. I mean, we don't even have that conversation anymore. What we do now is, here's a list, go make phone calls, ask them for $25, ask them for $25,000. We don't even know why they give to the University of X or the Cancer Society. We don't know if they lost someone. We don't know if they went to that school.
You are singing my song. This is exactly what I'm talking about. So I started out understanding this field from the perspective of the donor psychology, which opens all the doors, right? If you understand, in anything in life, right? Understanding what people are motivated by is like,
and the person in front of you.
The person in front of you. And so, I started off with them, and that was like day one in development. And I became completely obsessed with making that connection between people's values, their history, their dreams, their hopes, their fears, all that, and the priorities of the organization. And I do want to point out that learning about the donors and their values is not the same thing as the next step is let them tell us what to do with our organization. The next step is we have a plethora of opportunities to make an impact, and if your donor can't find something in your organization that's a priority, it's okay. We're not for everybody, right? There are lots of great nonprofits doing amazing things. And if it's not a match, that's good information. And then you move on. So that's how I started. And I've been doing this. I've worked in academic medical center doing fundraising for diabetes. I've worked, right now I lead a college of engineering and a college of business. We're in a campaign, et cetera. I'm a leader in higher ed advancement. I love my role, and my favorite thing about it which says a lot because I love working with my donors so much, but my favorite part about it is being able to pour into the next generation of fundraisers. Like, that is what I'm here for, is that butterfly effect of teaching all these fundraisers who will then teach fundraisers who will then teach fundraisers. Like, that's where I am in my life. And that's why I have this passion project.
What do you see, and we're going to get to that, but what do you see in this generation where, we hear about the uber wealthy and giving money and things like that, but we see them giving. I don't know that we see them teaching. We just hear about it. So what are you doing, or what are you doing to teach? And what are you seeing that needs to happen to teach? I know, in a nursery school setting, we might teach our kids to be kind and to share and to give, but how does that translate to later in life, the big dollars, so to speak?
Yes. So there are two things. One is, and this is a critical component that nobody ever talks about, but it's mindset. So it is knowing that as a fundraiser, you are doing something incredibly noble and important. You are not twisting arms. You are not begging. Period. You are not begging for money. You are not lower than, you are not less than. There's a power imbalance with donors, of course. But it's that mindset of knowing, okay, we're going to talk about money. We're going to talk about values. We're going to talk about serious, heavy duty stuff. And I'm here for it. I'm comfortable, people being confident going into those conversations. And sometimes that's about reps. Sometimes it's about some deep personal work that needs to happen because we all have interesting relationships with money. Everyone does, period. There's no one who has a totally straightforward relationship with money. So sometimes you got to do your own work. What's your relationship with money? What's your perception of donors? When did you first see someone make a gift? What did that mean to you? Did you watch your parents or your community, being philanthropic? So that personal work, I think, is step one. And that we don't do at all. We just assume people are copacetic to go in and talk with people about money. And that's just not how humans work. And then step two is the skill set. So, what are the tools that you're going to use? What are the resources available? What are the steps? It's a science. There is, truth be told, there's all that donor psychology piece, but also fundraising is a science. There is an algorithm, right? We know exactly what's most effective and what's going to get people through the donor life cycle. And it's just implementation. And I totally am biased, and I bet you are too, toward execution.
Yeah.
I do not care about all the strategic plans in the world. People talk about it. It's all about execution and implementation. And if you don't do that, you're never going to get the gift.
What do you say to, and I've got to go there, in that you have people who are supposed to be in the role of fundraising, but I'm not comfortable, or I don't like to ask people for money.
Yeah.
And I like to say that I get that. And, I think there are people who are very good at it. I do believe that. I think that, I happen to know some people and I'm like, wow, they can go in a room and everybody's giving by the end. And I think that there are people who just simply are not. But I think that you can teach people to be more comfortable with it. But I also think that if you're in the position to be in that fundraising role, you got to get over that fear. And so how do you, what are some best advice or best tips?
Best advice. Well, first of all, I would love to just flip a switch, and all those people who show up on a board and say, I will do anything, asterisk, except for ask for money.
Right.
I would love to just flip a switch, or do something so that they could get past that part, but it does take some work. There's no question.
Right. I'm always curious about those people because I'm like, what do you think you're doing here? I mean, I'm sorry. I just told you offline, I say what I mean. And
Yes.
but the truth is when you go onto a board, okay, people listen right now. When you are asked to sit on a nonprofit board, it isn't because you're cute and adorable. By the way, that nonprofit board needs you to help raise money.
Yeah.
They need you to help raise money, awareness, and get people engaged. That's your role.
Otherwise, you are the volunteer that keeps on taking, because a board member is care and feeding and overhead for the executive director, for the administrative staff, for the other volunteers. So to your point, everybody listen, please do not roll onto a board if you are not ready to fundraise, because you become a liability, and no one, maybe the most forthright among leaders in nonprofit sector, will say to you, hey, really need you to do this, or need you to roll off the board. Most of the time, they're not going to tell you. They're not going to tell you that you are dead weight, because they're hoping that you're going to change your mind and start fundraising. That's what's happening.
You know what? I have to tell you though, in my experience, shame on the executive or shame on the executive board of governors, because we're kidding ourselves.
Yes.
I mean, I'll say that in my years of we give these people passes, we give these people more and more. And it's the truth of the matter is they're begging to be cut free. And I say, cut them free.
Cut them free. Always, always, always have.
I think like it's very interesting in the nonprofit sector. We're so afraid of hurting someone's feelings. And the truth of the matter is, if you think about it, they're not helping the survival. You wouldn't do that at a corporate level. At a corporate level, they'd be fired. They wouldn't be even on the board. But in a nonprofit, we're so afraid of the look of it. And the truth is that more than ever, and especially, you know, I wanted to ask you, and I would say, and especially in a year where we've just had, where, you know, as I said to you, I run a part of my business, I run a nonprofit. We canceled 3 major events. We did not raise any money last year. You know, you can't survive. You know, we're trying.
Right.
We're, you know, but when you cancel your events and you're trying to survive on events, you know, it's been a hard year for nonprofits. You know,
It's been a hard year. I would say, you know, a couple of things about helping board members be comfortable starts very early in the process. I think about, you know, how do we onboard clients so that they fit into our system, right? You don't want the anomalies, you don't want the high maintenance, right? And part of that is being clear up front. Here's how we engage, right?
Yes.
Roles and responsibilities, very clear. They have signed off on it. They have been mentored by other board members saying, here's how we do things here. Here's our culture. Here's the steps, you know. So roles and responsibilities, A. B, of course, they've been very vetted for whether they are a team collaborator or whether they are an individual contributor, right? I don't like to bring people on boards who aren't team oriented. We don't need a lot of individual contributors, truth be told. I think that, you know, being clear about expectations going forward and saying things like, what is the best way for us to remind you when a task comes due? Like, they have buy-in, right? Tell me, do you like an email ping? Do you want me to text you? Do you want me to call you? Do you want me to shame you? Do you want me to send somebody to your house with a baseball bat? Like, how do you like
tried that? But I love that. I love what you're saying, and almost, you know, the communication, the expectation, the buy-in. You know, people are giving, you know, here's the thing, they're giving up their time. This is their free time. This is their passion. And, you know, I always say you want to thank them with gratitude of that. And so you don't want to be the nag, you know, but yet you also, the expectation of the board or the expectation of the executive is that you said you wanted to do this.
Yep.
So my expectation is that you're going to.
My expectation is that you're going to, and I'll leave you with like two more things that I think really helps. One is we have to be comfortable in our own place in this power imbalance. I do not remind more than 3 times, period. I don't care what's at stake. If someone else wants to keep pinging and reminding, that's for them. I get that. I'm not going to do that because I have other things to do with my time. And when I lower myself, I lower the organization. When I nip at people's heels, that to me means they're not as into it as we thought they were. And then the other piece that I cannot budge on is there must be giving expectations. They have to give themselves. And if they don't give themselves, that's a prerequisite.
So
and then you go to your first meeting.
So I have a question for you about this. Years and years and years ago, I was president of an organization, and certainly a huge component, I was much younger, a huge component of it was the fundraising aspect. I was single starting in my career, and certainly made president, not from the fundraising, and the giving, but the organization. One of the parts that I was most uncomfortable with was asking these major successful people for the amount of money that they were already giving. But also, it was like, okay, well, this year the expectation is they'll give more. Yeah. I was not at that giving power. They certainly knew it. I was at the leadership power, so to speak. I don't like that word, but I was at that leadership stature, but not the giving power. And I always felt that somebody else should be asking them in the same sort of financial level. And I never knew if that was a good way of looking at it or not, because I always thought if I gave $10, I could ask for $10.
No.
So I never, today as a foundation executive, believe me, I'm asking for people for money that I'm not giving at all, and I believe me, I don't care.
Right.
I'm calling on the phone going, to major corporations going, here's the cause, here's what we need.
Yeah.
It's no problem. But back then when you're, it was, asking someone for $10,000, that was like mind blowing to me.
Yes.
So I just never knew in the fundraising world if you should be matching people. And I think about that because when you have a young person like yourself, you were young starting out in development. We have lots of people young starting out at these major universities in gift giving and so, I think like, do you match fundraisers to funders?
We do. We will look at different factors for like suitability in the relationship, but we never bring like socioeconomic status into that or capacity to give. And I think it's a really slippery slope, and one that I wouldn't want other fundraisers to get into, to attempt to be at that level. And I think about examples of when we're working with donors with high capacity and high net worth, and they might be talking about their travel, right? We're not flying first class, right? But they are. So, what can you bond about that? Like, have you always wanted to go to that place? Are you interested in that place? Do you speak the language from that place? Like, find those commonalities that aren't about ability to give or invest or have cash flow or have toys, because you can't keep up. I tried for a little while to always have the same level of bag as my donors, which no can do, right? I was priced out with the first Birkin, right? Like, it's not like,
and it's so funny that you say that, because I think that there's a certain maturity and age that comes with that. But I think you also learn that just in your friends. You have friends of very different statures, and you learn very quickly that your friends are your friends, and
Friends are your friends.
and
Yep. They all put their pants on one leg at a time, just like we do.
trust me, and the good days and the bad days, you'd still pick your own problems.
Yep.
And so that's interesting. Now, you have a very successful career, but also you've taken your successful career, and as I said to you offline, you're just so brilliant, and in creating this passion, sort of a passion project in teaching. With some time left, tell us a little bit about what you're doing, because I've already been writing some notes.
Yes, and let's connect after this too, because I want to follow up on some of these things, and I know that God, I could talk to you forever, but I have to scoot. So
no problem, because you're coming back.
Okay, good. So I am obsessed with this project that I'm working on right now. So what I did was I took all, you mentioned how awesome that mentor was, right? I took everything that all my mentors taught me. I took at least 10,000 conversations with donors, hundreds of mentoring conversations with staff and nonprofit volunteer fundraisers. And I poured it into, how can I expand the impact that I can have with the remainder of my working years? I've got all this knowledge and experience, and how can I make the greatest use of it? And I saw all these opportunities across really the world to help nonprofit executives, leaders, and volunteers fundraise without fear, right? Without even any feeling awkward, to get to the point where they are skilled and maybe even gifted at connecting donors with nonprofit causes that are making a difference in the world. So I'm teaching these people to be good at fundraising. And it's those steps that I shared early, because we need more fundraisers. We need it. Donors do not wake up in the morning knowing how to give, what to give, how to structure their gift, how much the project will cost, what the budget is, what's the best moment to make. No, that's not a thing. They need fundraisers to help them. So that's what I'm doing. And I'm super excited about engaging nonprofit, founders, leaders, and volunteers in the process of learning how to be great fundraisers.
Well, I'm excited. You can find Anne Marie Murphy best on LinkedIn. I told her she, for sure her website, which is courses.annemurphysolutions.com/guide. But really look Anne up on LinkedIn, because I think when your business is you're going to need her, what she talks about on LinkedIn. I'm going to have you back, because I think this is an ongoing conversation. I'm going to send you an email later today.
Great.
Just in my own world, we have some interesting things going on here in Michigan. And, I'm such a believer in you meet people at the right time for the right reason. And, just to let people know out there that there's some things that you and I are going to definitely be connecting on. But
that's awesome.
I think this is the kind of conversation that has to have part 2 and part 3, because there are a lot of amazing nonprofits out there, and they need help, especially coming off this year. I'm not alone in my own foundation, but I work with a lot of nonprofits, and it's just not about asking for the money. It's coming off a year where their budgets have been slashed or things, and it's sort of trying to figure out how to get that engine going again. You can't, sometimes you just can't say, okay, here we go. Sometimes those donors have disappeared, or things have happened in their own world. I'm about to do a huge golf outing, and I have lots of people saying, I didn't have a great year. Can you adjust the price? Can you do this? And you have this all day long, and you're like, well, yeah, I wish I could adjust the price, but I didn't have 3 events.
Right.
And it's like your heart is like, yes, I want to adjust the price, but what do I do? So I think that, I'm not alone. I always say what I'm going through in a nonprofit is what, hopefully I can help be a voice. And I think what I'd love to do is have you back on, and we'll maybe get some questions rolling out.
Absolutely. I would love that. I'm so happy to meet you and hope to get to know your audience. I'd love to be helpful in your mission and theirs. So I will keep my eye out for an email from you, Sari. I'm so happy we met. Have a beautiful day.
You too. Enjoy. Hop on your other call so you're not late.
I'm going to. Bye.
Bye-bye.